And in 5, 4, 3. Well, it's Sunday, you milky licking bastards, and it's another edition of Realms of Metal. And as always, with you right here at the helm, Antmaster 5, and of course, 3 counties away and 1 state over to the west, my best friend of the last 30 plus years. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Randy Watson. Oh, wait a minute. I mean, Metal Thrashing Ed.
I'd like for you to say hello to my band, Sexual Chocolate.
That boy's good.
They play so fine. Don't you agree?
Yeah, good and terrible.
What's going on, brother?
What's up, my man? It's been a week.
Yeah.
Lot of stuff in the news about music, and Paul Stanley was in the news.
What happened with him? I heard something about him. He said something, then he took it back.
Yeah, apparently I'm gonna nutshell it and I'm gonna be vague. Apparently he kind of let out a bit of an old school conservative value that he kind of grew up with. And I guess, from a political standpoint, a lot of people didn't agree with what he said. And they're like, oh, you can't say that. And I was like, yeah, but he's Paul Stanley. He can say whatever the hell he wants. And I'm not a big Kiss fan, but, regardless of, even Gene Simmons, regardless of Gene Simmons, banging 893, women on a Friday, he still has that kind of, no religion, no politics way about him. Very old school, kind of under the table conservative.
Don't forget, Gene Simmons is also a doctor and a scientist. So,
well, yeah, I mean,
he knows it all. Trust me.
And he invented pants.
Yeah.
Remember when we've talked about the late great Ronnie James Dio, where he said, I invented this. Of course, Gene Simmons will tell you he invented that. And I forget what Ronnie James Dio says after that. He goes, yeah, but Gene Simmons will also say he invented fish. So yeah, I guess not that I want to be talk politics, but there's a right and a left, and I guess the right end of the spectrum was like, hey, yeah, go Paul, and then the left was like, how could you? And then he was kind of like,
not to get into politics, but this right left bullshit is just another way to divide the people, and that's what.
Amen. I agree. That's why I believe in the 11th commandment: thou shalt keep thy religion to thyself. And I'm kind of the same way with politics lately. I just and speaking of which, Alice Cooper, we'll hang out with you. Alice Cooper made a statement. Man, he got in a lot of hot water from both sides, where he said, and I'm going to paraphrase it, where he didn't agree with rockers and, metal or, rock and rollers, musicians rather, that were too politically driven. Because he said, basically, you're like he said, regardless of whatever side it is, but you're force feeding your view to your fans. And he says rock and roll is about freedom, and that's not rock and roll. And I'm like,
it's always been that
Alice.
Way, though.
Yeah,
we've listened to political bands our whole lives, So
yeah,
I mean,
it's like I think about like Rage Against the Machine. I think from a Gen X perspective, I think, yeah, maybe in 1994 when I was 19, maybe I was a little loosey goosey, and I was like, a little bit more rebellious, and I'm not saying I had an F the police, well, maybe a little bit, but it's like now, I'm 48, and it's like, I don't know, that just irritates me. Well, Tom Morello just irritates me, period. But what do we got tonight, kids?
We're going to go from one spectrum to the other, literally. We're going to talk about glam bands who actually had talent. And then we're going to talk the mighty Cannibal Corpse. We're going to just go into a little bit of their history, discography, lineup changes, and rap about them for a while. I'm excited about that.
I am very excited. Are we going to talk about Mr. O'Brien? And
oh, we are.
Okay, I'll let you take the helm on that.
And you know, he's got. We'll talk about it, but he obviously had some mental issues going on, and
yeah,
you know, mental health is a real thing, and it doesn't get
amen.
You know, looked at the way it should. I mean, it's a real issue, and it has to be taken seriously. But that aside, we'll get to that. But what do you want to start with, my man?
Well, Eddie and I always pick the topics here. I did. I picked this topic. Well, actually, we'll start with glam bands. I thought about this like on a whim, and I said to myself, self. I was thinking, and I said to myself, you know, putting the first puck out on the ice, even though we're still sitting Shiva. Excuse me.
Wait. How great is it? Like, I'm rooting for the Panthers hard. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Tell me about it. They're the eighth seed, the second wild card. So if you're old school hockey fan, they're the eighth seed. Upset the fucking historic Boston Bruins and their historic record this year.
Yeah.
And now they're up 2-0 on the Leafs. And I love that, man. I'm just rooting for them hard in these playoffs.
I just want to see cess-ridden filth and demise happen to the Hurricanes.
I don't think Jersey's beating the Hurricanes. You know, I really don't. I mean, they're already down 2-0.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like I said, I'm not promoting violence, but you know, if speaking of the mighty Cannibal Corpse, if their Sebastian Aho was to come down with some type of evisceration plague, my eyes will be dry. On that note, I was thinking, I said, yeah, for the first part, like I said, the first puck we'll throw on the ice. Back when we were kids, what were we calling these bands?
Before knowing everything about that,
I called it
heavy
I couldn't
metal,
wait to ask you this question.
Ozzy was heavy metal, Rat was heavy metal, Twisted Sister was heavy metal, Quiet Riot was heavy metal. That's before I knew anything about it. That's how I lumped it.
And then like some of the people from like the big four, I won't mention names, but like it rhymes with Dave Mustaine, you know, kind of was like, oh, well, you know, those are posers. And then there was poser metal. And then, you know, like you heard the term from James Hetfield where it's like, well, we didn't want to be in LA where everybody was glammed out. And then not until like the late 90s do I remember seeing an infomercial on TV, the best of hair metal on 2 CDs.
It's funny you say that, right? It reminds me of this. I had a friend in high school who had an older cousin who was like 3 years older, and he was a big metalhead. And you know, if you watch the old Headbangers Ball from the 80s and the 90s, you know that they grouped all that stuff in together. They would play a Poison and a Queensryche video and a Cinderella video, and then go ahead and play like Napalm Death and Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah.
So all that stuff was on the Headbangers Ball. So like my friend's cousin, we would talk about the Headbangers Ball like we were hanging out, and he goes, "Did you see that hard rock pussy ball this weekend?" And that kind of like opened up my eyes. I'm like, you know what? He's right. You know, they play a lot of off-kilter stuff on the Headbangers Ball that they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, and like Ricky Rackman had to be like the devil's advocate for everything.
He loved everything, I know.
Yeah, and I remember when he had Nirvana on, and there's Kurt Cobain wearing a dress. Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain wore it. He goes, well, it is a ball, right? I was like, okay. And I never considered, you know, Nirvana, even before I even, you know, we had names for genres. I never considered them metal. I don't know what the hell I called them then. But nevertheless, I think right around the turn of the century, the year 2000, we'll make it up to you in the... Anyway, I think somewhere it became hair metal. And then like when satellite radio came about, they literally had a channel called Hair Nation. They still have a channel called
See,
Hair Nation.
I got a view on this. Like as I got older and I
Hit me.
realized what was what, I hate calling these bands glam metal because to
I do
me
too.
it's not metal. It's hard rock. Like it's if you think the word heavy metal, the term heavy metal, like who invented the genre? Black Sabbath is heavy metal. You know, Judas Priest is heavy metal. Anybody who's not as heavy as those two bands are not metal. That's how I set my bar. If they're equally as heavy as Priest or Sabbath, they're metal.
But the way you did that with your hands literally looked like you were in a deli and you were like, I want roast beef, then provolone, lettuce, tomato, and if you put one effing stitch of mayo on my sandwich. I totally agree with you.
You know,
I totally agree with you.
That's how I view it.
And it always seemed like you really didn't know what to call, these bands that we're going to talk about because they weren't in the same category as, Exodus and Metallica, Slayer, and the Megadeth guys, the Dave Mustaine band. But I always remember like, what are they? Like not listed here because I never considered I only considered them hard rock, or I never considered Bon Jovi any type of metal whatsoever.
No.
I never heard any of that. Nothing. There's got to be some kind of. I'm holding a pick. I'm not holding a pick, but I'm doing Italian and I'm doing a pick. There's got to be some form of down picking somewhere in there. And Richie Sambora, he didn't do any of that. You remember when? Oh, what was that dude's name from Remote Control? Not Ken Ober. I actually met him. Who was the other dude on the TV show? Colin.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
Colin Quinn.
Yep.
He wrote a parody song. Instead of "I'm Going Back to Cali" by LL Cool J, it was "I'm Going Back to Brooklyn." Do you remember that?
No.
And I think the original version was I sat on a beach. She gave me a peach, and she said her name was Laura or something like that. And the Colin Quinn version went, we sat over there. She sprayed her hair and showed me a picture of Richie Sambora. I don't know why that stuck in my head when I really got off the beaten path there, Ed. I never considered them, metal. I was like, they were hard rock at best. And even Van Halen teeters for me.
I debated on whether to put Van Halen on my list at all, and I opted not to because
same.
I
And
thought,
I'm a big Van Halen
you were going
fan.
for like the real glam hair bands, and I don't know if Van Halen was necessarily that. So I kept bands like that off the list.
Necessary? Is it necessary for me to drink my own urine?
I got some hookers in my room.
All right, Billie Jean King, no crying in the breast milk. So I'll throw some of mine out here.
Go ahead.
I made a list of a lot of kids here, a lot of bands that we grew up with. I definitely put them in a particular order, and like who I think like my number one hairish, glamish metal band was that had talent. But starting at the bottom of the list, this was a band that really didn't get a lot of credit. Was L.A. Guns.
I saw them. I didn't put them on my list, but I've only had one LA Guns album ever, and that was Cocked and Loaded. It's a really good album, but
there was something accusatory about the way you went. I saw them. I don't know. I was waiting for something.
It's a band that I looked at that I was going to put on my list, but I did not. So
it's like, what did Tracy Guns do to you, man? Number 19, Love Hate.
Good band, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think they call it dope? Number 18, Y&T. I actually thought they had some talent. 17, I put Kicks.
The cereal?
Yep. Yeah. Kid tested, mother approved. Was that Kicks a slogan?
It was. You're right. Yeah.
Wasp.
That's a band that kind of teeters on the metal / glam for me.
Exactly.
They're on
Which
my
is
list.
why
I put them on there because I felt like they needed to be on there. But
I need some more light here. Sorry.
I love Wasp. I love the old Wasp, to be honest with you. And if you're interested, in August they're coming through not too far from here with Armored Saint. So if you're down and you want to go, it's a Friday night. We're there. I already got a couple people that want to go. So
where's the venue? Where are they playing?
It's in Stroudsburg.
Strausberg.
Yeah.
Jawohl. Now we've talking German accent. 15. Oh God, 15. Angel eyes. You have angel eyes. I threw Steelheart in there just because. Dokken, I put kind of high on my list at 14, just because I felt that
that was another one like Wasp for me. They kind of teeter on the line between metal and hard rock.
I felt George Lynch was a little maybe overrated for a guitar player. I thought Don Dokken himself was a decent songwriter, but there's still a part of me that just feels like they never really broke free of breaking the chains. No pun intended. Number 13, I can see you're sitting down, and good. Europe. Fuck you, say what you want. Europe had some talent.
They did. I don't disagree with that at all.
The thing I'll always say about Europe is that for any Gen Xers like ourselves that were, definitely in middle school around 1986, 1987, these are adolescent years when you start to discover your own body and, discover musicianship and I want to play guitar and whatnot. If you were the kid playing guitar and you knew there was a kid down the block that played drums, you never could find a bass player, but you found one. And if you did find one, somebody in that band that you started in your garage turned around and said, we got to get a keyboard player. And the only reason why they said that was
it's a good album. It really is. I have the vinyl.
It's a great, I really do love that album, with the exception of my wife did this thing years ago, and it's just been stuck in my head. We always talk about misheard lyrics, Jimi Hendrix, excuse me while I kiss this guy, but it was this guy. And she thought Kerry was Gary. I mean, she didn't think that, but she just said, I don't know, maybe it's just his accent. I hear Gary, and I'm like,
just to hear totally another guy serenading another guy, Gary.
I mean, hey, weird, moving right along, number 12, we're going to bring in Mr. Tammy Downs and the Faster Pussycat. I always thought Brian Forsyth was a great, great guitar player, and I just thought collectively, I thought they brought something good to the table. Number 11, this is a weird one, because this is another teetering one. You're going to go, I'm going to watch your face when I say it. Saigon Kick.
You think they were metal?
I don't know. I think they were a little glammy.
They definitely were glammy.
But I have the album The Lizard. Do you have it in your collection?
I don't know. I don't have any Saigon Kick records.
You don't need any except that.
I don't think I've ever owned any, so I can't speak on them. But
you made a face like I said Barry Manilow. That's exactly what I wanted to get at you. Number 10, coming into my top 10. Number 10, Great White. Great White had some great talent, but Great White also was very, very bluesy. When you listen to tracks like House of Broken Love, there was some smelly blues in there. It's like a sleazy blues club type of vibe. Number 9. Oh, wow, my microphone wire's in the way. I almost said White Lake, New York. White Lion. Yeah. White Lion is a great. Just, I mean, yeah, you like got a lot of elements there that work, especially Vito Bratta.
He was amazing. He put them way over the top.
I I could literally talk about Vito Bratta all day, and just his guitars, the Steinberger with the headless guitar.
Just don't talking about the subject, like me getting ready for. I listened to Pride and Main Attraction last night, and he's amazing. They were great songwriters too. I mean, I wish they had stayed together longer, but
so the next album I listened to last night at work. Well, I listened to, I want to say it was their third album. I want to say it was their third studio album. And their third studio album was called Dog Eat Dog.
Warrant.
I put them on the list.
They're on my list too, actually.
And the funny thing is that is my favorite album by them.
Dog Eat Dog, no kidding, huh?
I don't know what it is about that. There wasn't the cherry pie cheesiness of that, genre, but they had a track on that album called April 2031.
Yep.
It was like a post-apocalyptic song, and it was dark.
Yeah, and then the Bitter Pill, I remember.
The Bitter Pill,
you had that CD and used to play it in your car all the time. I remember.
Yeah, then he sang in German in that song.
Yeah,
it was very Rammsteinish. Was the fire necessary? Ask them. Number 7. This I don't know. You're gonna probably proverbially smack me in the mouth on this one. I put Twisted Sister.
Yeah, they kind of hinder on that line with hard rock and heavy metal. Like,
I wonder if you're gonna guess my number 1.
Are you on your number 1?
I'm not on my number 1 yet. I'm on my number 6.
Okay, all right.
Number 6 is Cinderella.
They were on mine.
Number 5 is Poison.
I excluded them off of my list.
Now I'm actually putting them not in like my top 3. So that's kind of my way of kind of excluding them. And the only reason why I didn't put them in like way up there is because I love Look What the Cat Dragged In.
It's a good one.
I love Open Up and Say Ah. You lost me a little bit on Flesh and Blood, and I don't want to talk about Native Tongue.
You don't like the Unskinny Bop?
I don't at all. No. But I know that if if you want to buy like a bass in a garage sale and it only has the low E string, well, you could learn that song. Okay, number 4. Now we're coming up to high on the list here. Number 4, I put Rat.
They're on mine.
Oh, wow, I fucked up. Oh, no, all right. Number 3, Skid Row.
They were, to me, I always considered them more metal, but I mean, I guess they could teeter the line there.
Number 2 is going to throw you.
Go ahead.
I put Extreme for number 2.
Yeah.
So that leaves my number 1.
It's Motley Crue. I could already see it coming right now. No, huh? Is it Winger?
It is Winger.
All right. Okay.
It is Winger.
They were on my list. I thought they had some talent.
I really thought they had amazing talent, with one exception. I'll get to that exception in a second. I thought Kip Winger was a great vocalist. I understand, they got a lot of shit. They were the Nickelback of heavy metal. That's pretty bold statement. Mike Judge, when he wrote the character for Stewart, he put him in a Winger t-shirt.
You know what it was? It was that Metallica video where they were throwing darts at his picture.
They were throwing darts at Kip Winger's face.
Yeah,
Kip Winger had great teeth. Kip Winger was a great songwriter. Then you had Red Beach guitar player, and then Rod Morgenstein, and then there was another Paul Taylor, but not the Paul Taylor. I thought collectively, musicianship wise, minus Kip, I thought those lads came together very well. Almost, I'm going to say it, when you hear the instrumental part of Headed for a Heartbreak, if you could just listen to that, the instrumental part, that elongated solo towards the end, that really has a progressive metal feel to it.
Definitely.
You agree with me?
Oh yeah.
But the only thing that I have to pluck out is Kip has zero bass skills. He did nothing.
Didn't he play
did
bass
not,
for Alice Cooper? I think he did. I think he was in Alice Cooper's band at one point.
Which is El Guaquin for the Good Land. But yeah, I have one or two honorable mentions. I put Killer Dwarfs for an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
I put Damn Yankees, even though they were like the first metal supergroup. And then a strange one, a band that really didn't yield any hits, was a band by the name of Shotgun Messiah.
I remember that name. I don't think I've ever heard any of their stuff.
And then I kind of threw, I know you're a bigger fan than me. I just know the hits of this one. Another one that teeters. I put the Bullet Boys as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
And that's what I got.
My list wasn't nearly as long as yours. I just kind of did the ones that I liked and thought had talent. And I tried to make them exclusively glam bands. Like I love Dangerous Toys, but they're kind of more of a sleazy rock band, not like a glam band for me.
Yeah.
Bullet Boys was definitely on there. I love, like I said before, the first two Bullet Boys records. Cinderella was on mine.
What's the Bullet Boys' second record called? I don't even know. Their first one was self-titled. Right? Oh, it was
Freak Show. Yeah, really good stuff.
I always get that confused with Silverchair because that was their sophomore record.
White Lion for sure. I've always loved White Lion. I put Winger on mine. I put Warrant on mine. Definitely Rat. The old Rat's pretty good stuff. Dokken, Teeter in the Line. Wasp, Teeter in the Line. You can't argue with Blackie Lawless and Chris Holmes and those old Wasp albums, man. They're so good. I actually put
children.
I put Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Vinnie Vincent.
Yeah, that was Kiss. One that I was thinking about. Yeah,
he's a shredder, and those two Vinnie Vincent records are really good. And who played on those? It was Mark Slaughter with him and Dana Strum. They were on mine.
Can I put the Fender back now, Wayne?
I put a band called Nitro from LA. They had this.
I didn't know anything about them.
They had this. I have the first Nitro on vinyl, and they kind of have a flamboyant guitar player. His name is Michelangelo Batillo, and he's really good. And that first Nitro record, it's cheesy, but it's good. Like the guy sings in like a real high falsetto, almost like it almost sounds like a joke when he sings, but you just got to listen to it and take it for what it is. His name was Jim Gillette. He was a singer who incidentally was married to Lita Ford for some time.
Oh, no shit.
If you get a chance, check out that first Nitro record. I think you'll like it. Like I said, when you hear the guy start singing, you're going to be like, whoa, what the fuck? But it just takes a little bit of getting used to, and that album is actually pretty good.
That's like our friend from England, Darren Dazzo. He was into that one band called Jet Boy.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, and then there was one called Smashed Gladys. They were really glammed out. They were like right up there with Hanoi Rocks.
Yeah.
If you had Hanoi Rocks on your list anywhere.
I don't know. I did have Love Hate. I like those two Love Hate records.
You don't get any of the old feelings back when you see him, do you?
Mm-mm. She needs food.
I like it when she goes.
That was really the extent of my list, and that was it. I didn't rank them or anything. I just kind of went to ones that I like.
By union contract, I'm supposed to get a 45-minute break, and I admit, I don't care who's listening. Go to hell. I took like an hour-long break last night, and I was like just working on my lists. Didn't feel like going back to work.
All righty, you want to switch gears?
Yeah, tell us about Cannibal Corpse, Eddie.
The mighty Cannibal Corpse, formed in 1988 in Buffalo, New York.
That's where I just want to stop you.
Okay.
That was, with all kidding aside, I Google, a couple of things just so I can have some ducks in a row. I always knew them as being an upstate New York band, But then there's this other level of them being a Tampa-based band.
They relocated to Tampa in '94.
So was that the same kind of thing? Like, there's no death metal scene in Buffalo, so we're going to go to Tampa.
I don't know why they did it. I mean, if they said it, to do some research on this, I watched that Centuries of Torment documentary. They go into a whole history on the band, like a really detailed history, and it's really worth a watch. It's really good stuff.
Please continue. I apologize.
So 1988 in Buffalo, from the ashes of 3 local Buffalo bands who were Tyrant Sin, Leviathan, and Beyond Death. They have 15 full lengths to this day. Alex Webster came up with the name, calling it's an undead corpse that's going to eat you. That's Cannibal Corpse.
And that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Band is still going strong today. Alex Webster and Paul Mazurkowitz are the only original members, to this day. The first lineup was Alex Webster on bass, Paul Mazurkowitz on drums, Jack Owen on guitar, Rob Roussay on guitar, and Chris Barnes on vocals. Their first demo, it was titled Cannibal Corpse. People also refer to it as the Skull Full of Maggots demo also. That came out in 1989. The tracks had 5 tracks: Skull Full of Maggots, The Undead Will Feast, Scatter Remains, Splattered Brains, Put Them to Death, and Bloody Chunks. All 5 of those tracks appeared on the first record, Eaten Back to Life, 1990. They were signed to Metal Blade Records, Brian Slagle. They've been on Metal Blade Records their whole career. Now, that lineup would stay together until 1994's The Bleeding, when Rob Roussay was replaced by Rob Barrett from Malevolent Creation and Solstice. After The Bleeding, Chris Barnes was let go from the band. They say it was due to his piss poor attitude and vocal abilities. They say his vocal abilities were dwindling. And he was replaced by the mighty corpse grinder Fisher from Monstrosity.
And he's from Baltimore, I think. Right.
Interesting side note on Chris Barnes. The first time I saw Cannibal Corpse was on that Bleeding tour. We went down to New York City and we saw him at the Limelight. It was Cannibal Corpse, Sinister, and Cynic.
I never want to talk about the Limelight again. Go on.
Right. Now, I've met a lot of guys in bands, I don't have too many negative experiences with my metal heroes or people who I've met. 99% of them have been cool as fuck. Chris Barnes was one of the exceptions to that. We were walking in the door of the Limelight and he was standing there, right? And we knew it was him. And as we were going through the door to, get stamped or whatever, we're like, hey, man, what's up? We're excited for the show. And he didn't even say anything to us. He gave us a look like he was better than us and walked away. Like what an asshole.
Which is so funny because you and I met them. Well, I've met Cannibal Corpse twice with you. Once on the Sounds of the Underground, and then once on when we went to see them in October of 2015. What a reverse of that attitude. Remember how they were? Like, if you remember, we were outside the Chance when Corpse Grinder was walking and you called out to him and he turned around. I'm like, oh God. And he was like, hey, thanks for coming out, guys.
That's how,
And I remember we looked at each other kind of a little starstruck. And then if you remember, they had that meet and greet table. And I said the last time I was at a show, I almost got beamed in the head with a stick from Mazurkowitz. And Paul turned around and said, are you Polish? And I was like, no. And he was like, because you just pronounced my last name correctly. Because it's kind of like the days where the internet wasn't accessible so much on smartphones. And I was like, oh, all right.
So I don't know, if I'm in a band, especially an underground band like Cannibal Corpse, and you have these rabid fans, just acknowledging your fans goes a long way. There's no reason to be an asshole to them unless you are an asshole. And so when Alex Webster says, he was fired due to attitude issues, I totally get it. He was probably an asshole.
Yeah.
And then he was gone, not too much later, and replaced by Corpse Grinder.
And I didn't know much about, like, with the exception of, just him from a vocal perspective. I didn't know much about him as a person until he started 6 Feet Under. And then I started seeing interviews, and like, it's like night and day. You look at interviews with Cannibal Corpse, and they talk about their fan base, they talk about touring and recording and everything else. And then Chris Barnes, post Cannibal Corpse, all he fucking talks about is weed.
He had that feud years ago with Travis from Cattle Decapitation. You remember that? Cattle Decapitation
I know
was
opening
for them.
They opened for them.
Yeah, I remember. And I guess I don't know what happened, but they say Chris Barnes was talking smack about Cattle Decapitation during his set with 6 Feet Under, and Travis Ryan confronted him about it, and they had a verbal argument, and he went to walk away, and then Barnes sucker punched him.
Really?
Yeah. And then he was like, "Fuck it, we're off the bill," and they left. They just left the tour.
Wow. Fuck.
So that's that. It's said that Chris Barnes illustrated the original logo, the Cannibal Corpse with the blood dripping down off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he left the band, they kind of redesigned that logo. It's kind of the same, but it's like more, it's a little different. So when you see these reissues with that different Cannibal Corpse logo, that's why, because Barnes illustrated that first logo and they didn't want to use it anymore.
Okay.
So after Corpse Grinder came in 1996, Vile was released. That was, Alex Webster on bass, Mazurkowitz on drums, Jack Owen on guitar, Rob Barrett on guitar, and Corpse Grinder on vocals. So we'll push up to 97. Rob Barrett left the band. I don't know why. They say it was to rejoin his previous bands, Malevolent Creation and Solstice. So I don't know why he would want to leave Cannibal Corpse and go back to Malevolent Creation, but he did it. And then that's when they got Pat O'Brien. So for 1998, they did Gallery of Suicide. That lineup was Webster, Mazurkowitz, Owen, Pat O'Brien, and Corpse Grinder. That lineup would stay together through 2004 as the Wretched Spawn. And that year was the year Owen left the band, and then re-enter Rob Barrett for 2006's Kill. Kill was a fucking great record, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's up there on my that's up there on my albums on how I rank them.
And for Kill, it was Webster, Mazurkowitz, O'Brien, Barrett, and Corpse Grinder. And then that lineup would remain intact through 2017's The Red Before Black. Now we'll move up to Pat O'Brien in 2018. That's when he got into the trouble. He was arrested for assault and battery. The word was he entered his neighbor's house. He rented a house in Florida. He entered his neighbor's house and told them that the rapture was coming.
Okay.
All the while setting his own house on fire.
On fire.
Now he was armed to the gilt with all kinds of weapons.
Yeah, he had an RPG, I believe.
And ammo. And that ammo was like exploding. It was like a big thing that happened down there. It was a fucking disaster.
And it's just weird. It's like, because it's like I'm saying to myself, this like 3-4 years prior to this, it's like I shook this guy's hand.
I mean,
shame.
Yeah, it is a shame, and we hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't heard anything else about him, but I hope he's okay.
I did see a blurb that he had completed community service, and I guess it was a lot of money in damages, but I didn't read any press statement from him or his lawyer or anything like that, or his camp, if you will, that but I don't know. I doubt that. I mean, no news is good news. I mean, he never came across as a dick to me when I met him, so I don't, never. It's not like he was like, yeah, good, so, but like I said, I never heard anything negative or positive. He never really disclosed anything, and I don't know if he's on like any other kind of social media forum, if he has his own Twitter or anything like that. I've never looked into it.
Yeah, me neither. So that was 2018. Moving up to 2019, that's when Eric Rutan replaced him in the band from Hate Eternal, Ex Morbid Angel. Super. You just got to watch interviews with Eric Rutan. Like, he's just the most humble fucking guy.
And he's a little younger than everybody, I believe, too, right?
I think so. He's so talented. I just love his whole attitude and his outlook on everything. He's definitely one of my metal heroes, death metal heroes. And just looking at this lineup, like if you were to make like a super group of death metal players, every member of Cannibal Corpse would be in a super group. Like, they are a super group, in my opinion. Like, who would you rather have at every instrument and vocals than the guys who are on there now? Like,
I could think of nobody to be on drums except Mazurkowitz.
They are a legitimate super group, you know?
I mean, Mazurkowitz is the reason why I have a tip jar over here to buy a double pedal. I'm not even lying. I hope to tell him that to his face.
So that was it. That leads us to 2021's Violence Unimagined, which was the last record, the most current record they did, and that was
which I have to admit, that's the only one I don't own, and I have yet to hear anything off of it. Shame on me, but I'm good with the other 14.
Solid as fuck. Webster, Mazurkowitz, Rutan, Barrett, and Corpse Grinder. I think they're the most successful death metal band ever. I think they sold over like 2 million records. They like they're as good as it gets when it comes to death metal.
They were the first death metal band I got into, and it's so funny because looking at their their legacy of being banned across the globe, I think there was something that I don't even think you can buy one of their records in Australia anymore.
I think that's since been lifted. I think you can now, but for a while you couldn't.
And then in Germany, they were all edited, and I forget. Oh God, I can't. I knew I should have wrote it down. Talk amongst yourselves. Give me a second.
I'm just gonna pull something out real quick.
Here we go. Bob Dole, the former U.S. senator, accused Cannibal Corpse, along with hip hop acts including the Ghetto Boys and Two Live Crew, of undermining the national character of the United States. A year later, the band came under fire again in the U.S., this time as part of a campaign by William Bennett, Senator Joe Lieberman, then Senator Sam Nunn, and National Congress of Black Women Chair C. Dolores Tucker, to get major record labels, including Time Warner, Sony, EMI, Polygram, etc., to dump 20 recording groups responsible for the most offensive lyrics, and Cannibal Corpse being one of them. And then, of course, it goes on to also say that in 1994, they enjoyed a cameo in Ace Ventura's Pet Detective.
Yep. I think we should just dump all the politicians personally, but
absolutely. I mean, they have really, they don't make up the majority of our audience on what bands we like, so fuck them.
That Violence Unimagined was reissued with not reissued, but they had a special one with a special uncensored cover that I picked up. And I'm glad I picked it up because it's amazing. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I knew nothing of Cannibal Corpse when I met you, and you were wearing I think you were wearing Butchered at Birth. You were wearing the Butchered at Birth t-shirt?
It's my favorite. It's my favorite Cannibal album, Butchered at Birth.
Yeah. And what year was that released?
92.
92.
91, 92.
You were wearing that shirt the first day I met you, and I was like, the fuck are you wearing, man?
91.
Yeah, you were wearing that, and I was just, yep, I don't know, maybe it was just that old school altar boy in me. I was offended and appalled.
That cover.
Like, the fuck is this guy wearing there?
I love that cover. That's like the coolest cover ever.
They're putting babies on spikes. What the hell?
Did you see that movie Barbarian that came out last year?
No.
That was the one where they were like, it was like an Airbnb or B&B, and like this woman goes to this house and a guy's already there, and then they find this underground tunnel in their basement, like that goes way down.
Way down.
Wait a second. that movie had the potential to be so good. So like it was creepy as fuck. Like it had such potential to be like a horrifying movie. So they go down into this cellar where there's steps going down, right? And then
you're getting into it.
It's dark as fuck, right? And then there's rooms on either side. Like I'm like, how cool would it be to her, for this woman to walk into one of these rooms and see the cover of Butchered at Birth, where they got like, you know, these zombies where they had babies hanging from the fucking clothesline. Incidentally, the movie did not turn out that way. The movie was kind of shitty, but it had the potential to be really good. So I'm like, oh, I remember thinking that when she was walking down those steps. Like, oh, this is gonna be good. But you know, I love that cover. It's a horror cover. Like you look at their album covers and they're like horror movies, you know. It paints this visual in your head, like,
man, and that's what I always took away from the band. From a moral perspective, I grew a tough enough skin later on, and then when I got to listen to their music itself, I admit, like, they were the first death metal band I ever heard. So I was like, what is the I was like, okay, I don't get that, but this guy behind the kit, I want to party with him. And then just bass lines alone, I was like, ooh, you know, because I mean, when you get on a mixing board and you take the bass player and you go, oh yeah, we're just gonna pot him up a couple of notches, you got my attention. I admit, I kind of said to myself, you know what, these guys are they're just telling a fucking story. They're not slaughtering fetuses.
And they say that. Webster says that. He goes, it's basically just a horror movie that we're, you know, writing
about.
Yeah,
they're an audio horror movie.
Putting and then it into song, you know.
And then I bought oh God. So I got Tomb of the Mutilated was the first record I bought by them. And then I got the shirt.
Now that was an offensive album cover for sure. Like I had the shirt too, but it's not a shirt that I could wear to school or, you know.
So, not in a sad way. Let's talk about our moms. That shirt didn't. Yeah, no. I don't even know if I should talk about the shirt on the show. But I bought it. I was with you when I bought it, and I wore it. And my mom was like, kind of like that story I told you about my mom when I shaved my eyebrow off.
Yeah.
And she went, wait, something's wrong. That's all she said, you know? And she looked at it and, what the hell are you wearing? And yeah, it was. Is it a movie?
One of the principals came up to me in school. I had a Deicide shirt, and incidentally, it was a Legion shirt, right? And on the back, it said, "End of God, the way it must be." Do you remember that shirt?
I remember that. I remember that.
They made me turn that shirt inside out. They made you turn
it inside out.
Like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. Whatever. Wow. Yeah, that shirt didn't go over well. I wish I should have taken the picture that you took in my my parents' restaurant of me, where I put my hat backwards, so I made my eyes like that, and I was wearing the Tomb of the Mutilated shirt, and I was wearing gym shorts with I don't watch baseball. It was Chicago White Sox. I don't know why. That was the same night I took that picture of you, the aerial view with the Bent Circus t-shirt on. I still have that photo.
That was at a Bent Circus show, wasn't it?
No, it was. This is gonna sound really off kilter here. No, I can't believe I got to do this on the air. All right, listen. Eddie and I are married to women. There's a disclaimer. We took that at my parents' restaurant. I laid down on the floor, and you hung over me like that.
I don't remember that.
And I said, yeah, because if you look, the ceiling is behind you.
Okay.
That's stuck. The ceiling that's still at my dad's restaurant. It's got like stucco on it. You can see it in the background, and you were like that. And I was like, let's just get some weird Spike Lee angles here. And I laid down on my back, and I was like, yeah, straddle me. That was the same night we had a friend fall off the bar stool and land by the lobster tank.
I do remember that. Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Holy shit.
So let's talk about some of our favorite Cannibal Corpse tracks.
Sure.
Why don't you go first?
I did like just a 15 run here.
That's what I did. Yep.
I started off with Sentence to Burn, Savage Butchery. I put Effed with a Knife, Devoured by Vermin, Unleashing the Bloodthirsty. My top 10, I'm coming into it. I love the title track of Evisceration Plague.
It's a good one, right?
I just love that repetitive.
It's just it's groovy as fuck.
It really is. And after that, Murder Warship. Number 8, it's honest to God, just because of the title of the song. Even if I don't like the song, it's the title of it, because we said it all the time, and we didn't say it like Cannibal Corpse. We didn't say it in death metal lyrics. We said it like Dice. She was asking for it. That's why that's there. Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead. Blood.
That's a great song.
I'll just say swollen with liquid. First. Number 5, I think, is the first song, the first track that I ever heard. So what do you think it is?
Definitely Shredded Humans. Right?
That one, like, honest to God, Shredded Humans became a song for me where it was like, I think of the movie La Bamba, and it's like, you don't want to watch La Bamba when you're flying on a plane. You don't want to watch Die Hard 2 when you're flying on a plane. You don't want to listen to Shredded Humans when you're taking a road trip.
Again, another song that paints a picture with those lyrics. Like,
oh, absolutely.
And you know what? Those lyrics are easy to remember. Like, it just, I've known them my whole life. Like, I just, they're so good.
I mean, I remember like the seatbelt indicator going on in your car, and you take it and you're clicking it and you go, the seatbelt was meant to hold it back, and it simply just cut him in two. I knew we would have fun with this. Jesus Christ. Number 4, Skull Full of Maggots. Number 3, this is a great one, because I remember you were convinced this was about a Star Wars character.
Yes.
Make Them Suffer. Number 2, Strip Raped and Strangled. And of course, my number 1, Hammer Smash Face. Just love that song. And that is that's one of the ones that are now you have, from what we kind of grew up with Barnes singing it, and then everything that we have now with and even though it's been re-released like live and stuff like that, and I think Corpse Grinder put a great spin on it. Actually, I don't know this, and I didn't Google it. I'll ask you if you know it. Awesome. If not, we'll Google it later. The few times that I've seen Cannibal, and even seen just live performances, Fisher always starts it off with Hammer. He always does that. He comes back and he's got the mic and he goes, Hammer. Did Barnes do the same thing anytime they played it, or no?
I only seen him once, and honestly, I don't remember with Barnes. So
New England clam chowder.
I did do a top 15, and I do have some honorables. Killer Become is a great one. I love. I would just walk around the house and go, fire up the chainsaw. Hack all their heads off. Like, their lyrics are so much fun. Like, how much better does it get than that? Killer Become, Scourge of Iron, Evisceration Plague, Sentence to Burn, Inhumane Harvest off of the new one. Those are my 5 honorables. 15, I went Stripped, Raped, and Strangled. 14, I went Nothing Left to Mutilate. Super underrated song from the Wretched Spawn. Really good. I love Corpse Grinder's cadence when he's singing the verses on that. Like it's so good. 13, Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead. 12, Covered with Sores. 11, Compelled to Lacerate off of Gore Obsessed. Another underrated track, Compelled to Lacerate, really good. 10, Skull Full of Maggots, who incidentally, Glenn Benton did backing vocals on that. Number 9, Hammer Smash Face. Number 8, this is probably my most underrated Cannibal track, is Firestorm Vengeance. I mean, check that one out. That was on the Red Before Black. That's a pummeling track. It's so good. Firestorm Vengeance. 7, Fucked with a Knife. 6, Unleashing the Bloodthirsty. 5 is Gutted from Butchered at Birth. 4, Shredded Humans. 3, Make Them Suffer. 2, I Come Blood. And 1 is Vomit the Soul off of Butchered at Blood. Always love Vomit the Soul. Glenn Benton does backing vocals on that one too. So those are my top 15 Cannibal tracks.
That's awesome. Do the chainsaw thing again.
I had a blast doing this list because I would
do the chainsaw again.
Fire up the chainsaw. Oh, their heads off.
Fucking great.
So much fun. So much fun.
Oh, shit. I remember you punching my dashboard with Father of Three was available. God damn it. No, honest to God, I no pun intended. I always just had a lot of fun, listening to them. And, you know what the media does to metal. And, look now, people, we're the living example that, this is free will. And we grew up on these tracks, and Eddie and I didn't burn down a church. We didn't go on a shooting spree. Nobody murdered anybody. And
not yet.
I mean, there might have been, a couple of, horrible exchanges when I was in court with my ex-wife, but
there's some motherfucker somewhere that might be on a list.
Like I said, I have an ex-wife, and there might have been some horrible exchanges, but she was asking for it. So they think they know who I am.
We're going to rank the records. I only ranked 1 through 5, only because, they have 15 full lengths. Cannibal Corpse haven't put out a bad record, so it's really just a matter of taste. So, I only did the top 5. My number 1 was Butchered at Birth. I think that Butchered at Birth in the scope of their discography sounds the heaviest. Like the production on that was very, very dark, even for Cannibal Corpse. The lyrics were so low and guttural on that really you had to follow along because you really can't understand of what much what Barnes says on that record. I just love the whole feel of that record. I love the album cover. That was always my favorite, Butchered at Birth. Number 2, I went with Kill. Kill is just a killer album, top to bottom. We saw him on that tour. Just good song after good song after good song. Number 3, I went to the first record, Eaten Back to Life. 4, I went with Evisceration Plague. And 5, I went with The Bleeding.
Believe it or not, my number 1 is not, like I said, the first album I got by them was Tomb of the Mutilated. Again, I don't know. I think I just immersed myself in this record and why it was my number 1. My number 1 is The Bleeding, my personal number 1. We're fans, and it's, to each our own. The Bleeding, Tomb of the Mutilated. My third album was, I put Kill. That was kind of like I guess I could say like my resurgence in the band, if you will, my rediscovering. Evisceration Plague, Vile, Butchered at Birth, Eaten Back to Life, and Torture. Some of the other ones I haven't really immersed myself in. I might know like maybe 1 or 2 tracks off of Red Before Black. And for Violence Unimagined, I don't even have it yet. It's I mean I can queue it up on my Amazon Music and give it a whirl.
Yeah, definitely worth listen.
And Gallery of Suicide, that was another one that kind of hung in the balance.
But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with any of their records. They haven't put out a bad record. Like while I was prepping for this, I have their whole discography, you know, and I'm just going
You
through
celebrate their entire
the
catalog.
entire discography. And there, you know, there's no skip tracks. You don't look at a Cannibal Corpse record and go, oh, I don't like that track. There's never a track on any of their records that you say, I don't like this. I mean, they're all fucking good, you know, like
I will say that meeting them the couple of times that I did, just to see how humble they are. They're just kind of like regular Joes.
Yeah, man.
If you will. I said when you pointed out Corpse, when he turned around and was like, "Hey," and then he like walked up to us, and I was like, "Oh no, what did you do?" It's like, "Hey, thanks for coming out, man."
That's so cool. Like, you know, like...
So I didn't know your story about Barnes. So that was pretty cool to get, you to have that,
so
one end of the spectrum from the next.
When people say he's an asshole, he's got a bad attitude, I can vouch for that. You know, even for the 5, 10, 15 seconds that I was standing next to him with that whole thing going down, like we walked away from thinking, man, what an asshole. Like, geez.
And the funny thing is, Chris Barnes got me like my first viral hits on YouTube because I made a really underhanded comment on an interview video. I gotta find it. I'll send it to you. And it got like hundreds of likes. The comment I made, where I said, the interviewer is asking you about like the death metal scene and where do you see it going, and you're talking about aliens planting weed before the dinosaurs came. I'm like, where's your fucking head, man? And cut these. You look stupid with dreadlocks.
Yeah, I think they're one of the hardest working bands in death metal. It seems like they're always touring, man. They're always on tour. I've seen them a ton, and it's a testament to that. Like, they're always touring, so
I really enjoyed them when I saw them. I think they put on a great show, and I haven't really met a lot of bands, but I think they were a band that I was like, all right, I'm a fan. And then after I met you, meaning the band, all right, wow, you've kind of made me
makes you like them
fan.
even more.
Absolutely. Like I said, but when Mazurkowitz said that at that meet and greet table, like I was like the last time I was at a show, I almost got pinged in the head by a drumstick by Mazurkowitz, and he goes, he's pointing at me. He goes, "Are you Polish?"
Like the one time we went, I took my wife to see Deicide. I think I told you this. Like, she was convinced that they were the biggest bunch of Satanists, and she was kind of like scared to like go, but she didn't want me to go to the show alone. So we went to the show. She went to the bathroom. On her way out of the bathroom, she bumps into Glenn Ben. He said, "Hi, how are you?" And she was like, "Good." And like, he was like nice to her. So she came back and she said, "I bumped into Glenn Ben. He said hello to me." And then like her attitude changed. Like, Glenn Benton was a nice guy. Like, he wasn't this evil Satanist with the cross on his forehead that everybody says he is. She was like, oh, and her opinion totally changed. So that, just that little interaction with the fans, it goes a long way. And
absolutely.
It really does. But
I hope to see them again. I really do.
Yeah, when they come around, we'll go. Definitely.
They were definitely just had a great time. And especially like in a small venue, where it's like a little bit more of an intimate setting where, you can hang out with Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
But definitely the first death metal band I ever really got into, to the point where when it comes to death metal, there's really only 2 death metal bands that I celebrate their entire discography, if not, a majority of it.
Carcass.
And it's Carcass and Cannibal. Yeah, the 2 C's.
And 2 totally different sounding bands.
I'm just starting to get into that one that's on your shirt there.
Ooh, Legion's a good one.
Dry Fiction. What was the thing about Damien, the evil seed injected, or what was something?
Evil seed injected. It's
I was right. Okay.
Satan's spawn.
Yeah.
David.
On a side note, but completely relevant to what we're talking about. If you remember, we had a friend whose older brother, I should say no more right at that, would always make fun of us listening to death metal. And anytime we were doing something, hanging out, working out, he would come behind us and go, "We'll die." I think more so he would go, and then the pause, and then "we'll die." It was always that pause and die. But give it up for the Mighty Cannibal.
Yeah,
I
man.
absolutely love them. Just a great bunch of guys. I don't definitely did never put out a bad record. And I think now more so that I know what you said about Chris Barnes. I mean, I know that, I know he's out of the band. There was something about him that I wasn't vibing with just from a fan perspective. Again, my eyes were dry when he was out of the band. And then to meet Corpse Grinder and to shake his hand and look at him and actually see that he doesn't have a neck. I was a little starstruck, and it puts a whole different perspective on it for me, where it's like these are a bunch of guys that really appreciate their fan base, really appreciate that you came out and saw them,
Yeah, yeah,
and like they'll talk about anything. Hey, are you Polish? No, I'm Italian. Well, dude, you fucking said my last name right, so all right, man. You want you want some pierogies? I don't know how to make pierogies, but if I could surprise Paul Mazurkowitz with homemade Polish pastry, I would bring him to a show and be like, "My wife made these for you."
So yeah, hail the Mighty Cannibal Corpse. So I grabbed I got a couple things in the mail that I wanted to talk about. There's a
Is it the
band
Glitter
called
Bomb?
there's a band called Abyssus from Greece that I just picked up. The name of the record is Death Revival. This came out last year, but I didn't pick it up until just recently. Kind of a mixture between I'd say like Pestilence and Obituary. Like this is a band that I got to turn John Gill on. He would really like these guys.
And these guys are new. They're newer.
They only have 2 records out, and this is the latest one that came out last year. So I've been listening to it. It's really good. It's a beautiful vinyl. It's a gatefold.
Oh wow!
All the lyrics in it. It's almost got like a shiny, translucent vibe to it. If you can see that. So check out Abyssus. They're from Greece.
Greece.
Here's the vinyl of it. It was like a blue purple.
Oh wow!
Amazing. Really nice. And it wasn't expensive. It was like $22 or something like that. I mean, it was
not bad.
Definitely worth picking up. Great record. They're actually numbered, so there were like 4 variants of it. I got the variant number 2, and there was only 100 of those. So this was 46 out of 100.
Cool.
You can see that. And then I also grabbed this. I found this at a good price. I couldn't pass it up. Malaya Rage's Death Valley Dream. This came out in 1996, and it was reissued by Night of the Vinyl Dead. And this was like a limited edition reissue. And they were also numbered. There were only 250 of them. This one's number 30. You can see that. But this was a record that I had on CD, but I think it was a bootleg copy. Like I never had the original. So when I seen this for the price I paid for it, I'm like, oh, I got to pick that up. So I'm going to be delving into this today a little bit. So I'm looking forward to that. Have you picked anything up?
It's not music, but I definitely picked up a new hobby. If you want to end the show with that.
What you got?
I started magnet fishing.
Magnet fishing?
Yeah.
What is that?
You throw a magnet over a bridge on a rope.
Oh, to see what you can pull up?
Yeah.
All right. Have you got anything good?
I got a couple of bottle caps and an old license plate that I turned into the police.
Cool.
But I'm watching people on social media that's like this magnet fishing thing is taking the world by storm, or at least our nation. And I don't know if it's staged because a lot of the time they do call the cops, but there's a lot of fucking people throwing guns in waterways. And actually, some of them I could tell are definitely not staged because they're picking up a gun that's been in there probably since Butchered at Birth was released.
Yeah.
It's like got, all calcified and stuff like that. So I saw one of these kits on the Amazon, and I always shop my Amazon like I always go to customer reviews. That's how
got to be a pretty powerful magnet to be able
to. It's a 400-pound magnet.
Okay.
400-pound strength. It only weighs a couple of pounds. I think it weighs like 4 or 5 pounds. It's I should have brought it down here with me. Damn it. It's not much bigger than my my light here, or maybe like half of that, kind of like that. And it comes with a lot of line. It's I forget how big the rope is, but it's a lot. And it came in a whole kit. Came with the rope, the carabiner. It came with like latex gloves with grippies on them, and the magnet. And yeah, so like on my last couple of days off, there's a few waterways under the bridges. We have the Sandberg Creek here, which is the old runoff of the D&H Canal. And I'm like, fuck it. Maybe somebody left my town one day and they, were thinking about a drive-by. And they were like, no, I better not. And they threw the gun over the side.
Never know.
So, yeah, I feel like Wayne now, and I'm really sorry I told you that. But no, it's been a hell of a work week, so I definitely needed this, brother man, and I appreciate
the weeks
talking about the mighty Cannibal.
The weeks aren't getting any shorter, I can tell you that.
Yeah. my next schedule coming up, because I have a couple of training days and stuff, so I'm actually barely working because I have like a couple of the training days where I have to go in during the day, and it's just an 8-hour day. So like I had to supplement some vacation time and stuff. And yeah, there's a couple of big gaps where maybe we can go play pinball.
If you're interested in going to that Wasp Armored Saint show, let me know. I'm probably going to grab tickets next week. So
absolutely,
if you're not working, we'll work it out.
All right, cool.
Right, on that note, want to wrap it up?
Well, as always, kids, like and subscribe, hit the little bell. And please, if you're a fan of the Mighty Cannibal, throw your comments down here. And of course, if there's anything that you were thinking about on the other end of the spectrum of Cannibal, hair metal, that you were like, hey, what about these guys? What about these guys? What about these girls named Vixen? Go ahead and drop a comment. And of course, as always, if there's anything that you say, what you fucker should talk about, the progressive era was neither an error nor was it progressive. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm a little verklempt. But as always, keep it here, keep it metal, keep it real.
Thanks for hanging out with us on the Realms of Metal. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Fucking A.